are in Upper Žižkov. You can see the TV tower up there. Starting off with a little bit of road work. We'll take a walk around. One of the most vibrant night spots in all of Prague is this area, Žižkov. And it's in all of our hearts for all of time, of course. One of my favorite sections of Prague. Can be a little rough around the edges. There's still some buildings which are still in dire need of reconstruction. Here would be one of them. And this street here is Boží and basically this street is rumored, I don't know how true it is, but rumored to have more bars on it than any other street in Prague. And there's even a book about it called Unnecessary Errors. And in that book, a father and son go down this street having a drink at every bar. We have Chakobamba, Voodoo. These are two old school bars, have been here forever. One is a pinball place, but I think it's like a club where you have to like buzz to get in. You'll sometimes see that here where different bars and clubs you have to buzz to get in. And they don't let everybody in. Sometimes these are like smoking clubs, like you can smoke cigarettes inside, because after the cigarette ban some places wanted to continue smoking inside, so they made them into clubs, private clubs, which have like a little bit different rules about those sort of things, I guess. And then here on the right is Bohužel Bar. This building just recently got redone, got completely gutted, all new windows. And then Bohužel Bar here is kind of a notorious punk bar in Žižkov. So if you want to listen to some punk and rockabilly, you can go there. And we'll just continue to wander around. There's a lot of these places have gardens in the back. This place here has a garden. This spa for men place used to be called Alcatraz, and I think it's a sex club. I know it's a sex club, I should say. Everybody knows it. It used to be called Alcatraz because it had all these bars on the window. But of course this area has changed a lot in recent years as well, as the cost of property here has, well, skyrocketed over a decade ago. It's pretty firmly entrenched. They used to say, like, you know, stay away from Žižkov and it's dangerous, these sort of things. Nice big windows on that hotel, stained glass windows. Have the tram stop down there. Lipanska tram stop down the hill. There is like an anti-graffiti thing here, so you can like call a number and they'll blast off graffiti. Like this building clearly looks like the whole building is abandoned. Let's take a look. I mean, all those windows look like they're nothing in them. So what would happen is Yeah, nobody's been in here forever. Until papers on the floor. Not even any names on the buzzers. So sometimes these buildings will get bought up purely as speculative investments by a lot of time, I mean almost always by foreigners. So some person in Italy, for instance, will buy an entire building so they can park their money somewhere, and then they don't take care of the building at all. They just let it sit, and they're like, oh yeah, I should sell that, because they have assets all over. You know, if they have a $20 million building in Prague, barely even makes a dent in their overall portfolio. So they just neglect these buildings, and they just sit there. And there's a couple of them around here. There's kind of interesting squatting laws in some European countries as well, where it's not really has something to do with like evicting people, or I can't remember it. If you have a building that's derelict, I'm sure every country has different laws, but if you have like a derelict building and people start squatting it, and you don't kick them out because you're not paying attention at all to the upkeep of your building, there is a process which they can go through to actually kind of seize that property, or at least make the owner evict them, which may seem kind of crazy that somebody can break into an apartment and then live there, but if they're not being used and they're actually a blight on the rest of the community, actually bringing down the property values of the rest of the community as well, well, then things change. This used to be like, this is what you call like the Panelax or Sídliště. Those would be the communist apartment blocks that are kind of famous. You could walk through those if you want. I don't really know this part as much. We're coming up on Olszanska, which is a tram stop down the street. A lot of these balconies here, you can see they put glass up. So in the winter time, these are probably south-facing windows as well. In the winter, you can have a nice garden in those things. I'm just kind of wandering. I've literally never come to this part of Žižkov, but we are where we are. You can see the tower off in the distance there. Go take a look at that garden. I like this twisting tree. I like this twisting tree in the distance here. Go take a look at that. We only have a little basketball court here. This is actually a pretty nice park I've never been in. Some people doing, I don't know what they're doing. Are they exercising? It's a nice little tree. Yo, this looks like a... No, it's not. Got some berries on it. Huh. Not sure what they're practicing over there. Looks like Tai Chi or something. Hard to say. Yo, this shop moved. I remember when they were over in another part of Žižkov, so I'm glad they didn't close. It's like a vintage secondhand shop. Still gotta make that video of secondhand shopping here. What an odd park. Basketball is not very popular here, but they plopped a basketball court in here for some reason. Here you can kind of see how they actually set these cobblestones. Those two guys working over there. So they'll actually just do them one by one by hand. You gotta clink every single one in. It's pretty laborious work where these guys, you gotta just literally throw each one in. Dig up the street and throw every single one in there. And then the guy's gotta dump it. So these cobblestones here are a ton of work, as you can see, but I'd love to see a side-by-side comparison against it's like American roads, just constantly getting torn up. I'm amazed when I go back to the US how bad the condition of a lot of the roads are. And these aren't in some backwoods places either. I don't know. Maybe they're driven on more, or maybe asphalt is just garbage that gets torn up. Whereas they dig up these cobblestones and just put them back in. Also, a cost analysis would be interesting. How much it costs to maintain an American road versus one here. Here we have asphalt, and you can already see it's been cut up in certain places too. So, who knows? Maybe cobblestones are actually cheaper in some ways in terms of long-term maintenance and how much it costs to replace them. All these little cafes. I don't drink coffee. What is this little place? Well, that's a food place too. I always got my eyes open for junk shops. I'm a junker. Now heading up into, kind of headed towards Vršovice, almost. I think if we go down the hill here, we'll get into that area. Where we were last week as well, at the Grebovka Villa. Kind of coming up on that section. I made a very odd loop in order to get here, but I'm just wandering, seeing where we're headed. Will we be able to cross the road? We could just continue down. Further down too. Never understand how these showrooms for like sinks and tubs can actually stay in business. Like, how can you sell enough sinks to make a profit on your display room? I suppose if you get like a hotel to do or something, but I don't know. There used to be a street that was just full of furniture shops. I was like, how do these places pay the rent if you gotta pay thousands and thousands of crowns a month? Here we have the anti-cruise. Even on top of the crane, we've got a Ukrainian flag and the Czech flag up. And we'll just keep wandering back here. There's a ton of flower shops too. I don't know what the margins on flowers are, but for some reason they also stay open. I guess people need to buy flowers. They have name days here, so like if you have your name on a day, like every day has a name associated with it. And if you're one of those 360 names, you have a name day. And it's like a fake birthday where you get like flowers basically. So oftentimes these little flower shops will have outside in front, they'll write down whoever has a name day that day. So they'll be walking down the street and they'll be like, oh man, I gotta buy flowers for this person today. Don't see many of these RVs here. Not as common. Even that one is really little. That would be considered a pretty big RV. You never see the giant American ones. Just don't exist. Maybe a couple people have them, but overall, kind of an American phenomenon. Even this summer when I went back, I went to a couple camping places. I know I shouldn't be surprised, but it was just overflowing with these RVs, these huge RVs, and they're everybody's watching TV outside. It's cool. I'm sure it's nice. I don't doubt that it's nice. But kind of the extent where you're like, you've got an RV the size of a semi-truck pulling a golf cart across the country so you can sit in I don't know, sit in the Badlands of South Dakota and watch Everybody Loves Raymond on TV or something. I don't know what they're watching. I'm trying to think of something from their generation. But then of course you got younger people now doing the van life thing, which obviously, it's appealing. Being on the road, there's a certain American aesthetic to it. I don't know what that place is. Of course, there's the Jack Kerouac book on the road. But ideas of journeys and these sort of things have been embedded in literature for quite some time now. But anyway, the American version, this kind of van life version, is also popping up more and more. And I'm sure it's fun. I'm sure it's really fun. I imagine at a certain point you probably do get a little bit burned out. So they're gonna let you cross. You probably get a little bit burned out at a certain point, though. Want a hot shower and these sort of things. Alright, we are 20 minutes in. Yeah, just the basics of life. It's kind of like, you know, when people say you should move, I'm just gonna ditch this thing, I guess, because they're not gonna let me cross. And now they will. But a lot of times people will think of moving outside of Prague. They're like, I want to move outside of Prague and have a house. And a lot of times, you know, if they come from an American perspective of having a suburban house, it's like the default in a lot of respects. Having an apartment is not the American dream. Having a house and a yard and a dog is. And so they think, oh, I'll just move 45 minutes outside of Prague and get this big old house in the middle of nowhere. And then they move out there, and then they feel completely isolated because they don't speak the language well enough, and there's not as many like community-oriented things going on there that would be in a lot of, you know, a place like Prague. You can have different groups and meetup groups and stuff like that, but if you move to Czech Republic and then move outside of Prague, you're basically a Martian, and if you can't communicate, you're gonna get annoyed at a certain point. That was my experience, at least. I had the stupid idea to move out of Prague, and it was definitely a mistake. Had a yard, had a garden. Yeah, it's nice. I like that. I like yards and gardens and picking your own tomatoes and making a salad. That's cool. I also enjoy, like, you know, going to restaurants and chilling in beer gardens and living in a community where things are happening. Yeah. It's also something I'm kind of into. So we kind of went in a big loop today, seeing Upper Žižkov mainly, getting a feel for what it's like in different parts. Some parts more beat up, obviously, than others. And you know, this part of Žižkov, it starts getting, this is Vinohrady. Yeah, we're in Vinohrady now. It starts just becoming Vinohrady, and then if you go over a couple more blocks, you can get towards Barshovica. So yeah, we are in Vinohrady now. And you can even tell, like, there's not, where Upper Žižkov ends and Vinohrady begins, there's not exactly a lot of distinction. You can't like see it, like all of a sudden everything goes to hell and you cross into Žižkov. He's a famous Czech poet, national artist. This is where he lived and worked. I do like these little plaques on buildings. You see a ton of them. Here's another one. In this building, Rudolf Wels and Guido Lagus made functional style in 1938. Functionalism. Probably a very utilitarian approach to design, I imagine. Another little vintage shop. Ton more of these have popped up in recent years. Some of them do very well. Like there was one up in Hradčanska. I was walking, and there was literally a line like a block long because they had a sale. It was like 50% off. And there was a line up the entire road, like 2 blocks. Young women all waiting to get some like parachute pants from the 90s or something. But that place did have pretty affordable prices, probably 15-20 bucks for a lot of items. heading back to the cobblestoners. You can see they have this sand they put down, just between the cobblestones, so don't get filled with water and that sort of stuff. That's the way we walked up here. And you can kind of see, it's like a layer of sand they put down first there, and then put the cobblestones down on top of it. 9:02 on nice fall morning today. It's like the dog walking hour has approached. Prague does have some of the highest rates of dog ownership in all of Europe, actually. This guy's going for it, early morning styles. Little Scotty. I know. Are we in Žižkov? Okay, now we're in Žižkov. So, didn't notice a big change crossing over the border into Žižkov from Vinohrady there. I'm sure there's differences in how funds are allocated, and there's a couple streets I wonder why. Sometimes the street is just allowed to kind of deteriorate and others get fixed up, and I'm sure that it probably has something to do with corruption as well, where some developers come in and fix up all these buildings, and they're like, hey, we really would like cobblestones out front, because anywhere with cobblestones it's going to be worth more than if you've got some crappy asphalt laid down. It's constantly in repair and cut up. Looks like they're doing some big electrical work here. Replacing all the street lights or something. Look like the new cases on the bottom there. These street lights. I think we're coming back up on that basketball park. And we're at 28 minutes in.